There is a fruit sitting in your grocery store right now that is not what it claims to be. It is red. It is large. It is perfectly shaped. And it tastes almost like nothing. What was taken from you was not just flavor. It was a lineage, a biological memory stretching back through centuries of careful, patient cultivation. What replaced it was a system designed not for taste, not for nourishment, not for the earth that grew it, but for distance, for durability, for profit. The Albion strawberry was not supposed to survive the modern food machine. It was too fragile, too honest, too unwilling to hold its shape across 3,000 miles of refrigerated cargo. And so it was quietly moved aside, not destroyed, not forbidden, simply made inconvenient, until inconvenience became invisibility. This is the story of what was lost, and what, quietly, is still here. You are watching Ancient Food Files. This channel exists because forgetting is not accidental. Knowledge disappears when it stops being profitable. We document what systems leave behind. If you believe that what is buried deserves to be found, subscribe. Not for us. For the record, before you continue watching, please check the link I provided in this video's description. That way, you can verify it yourself. Now, let us open the archive. The Albion strawberry was born in California in 2006. That sounds recent. That sounds modern. But to understand Albion, you must first understand the soil it came from, and the century of human decisions that made its creation both necessary and, eventually, inconvenient. California's Watsonville and Santa Maria valleys, fog-cooled coastal plains where the Pacific breathes across the land each morning and retreats by afternoon. The indigenous Ohlone and Chumash peoples had worked this land for thousands of years before the first European boot touched its soil. They knew the wild Fragaria californica, the native woodland strawberry, not as a crop, but as a living presence, small, intensely fragrant, woven into the fabric of the coastal ecosystem. They did not farm it in rows. They understood it as something that did not require ownership to give. That knowledge was not recorded. It was practiced. Then came the missions, then the ranches, then the railroads, and the land that had quietly sustained life for millennia was reorganized into production. The wild strawberry did not disappear overnight. It simply stopped mattering to the people now making decisions about what the land would grow. The Albion was developed by the University of California, Davis, specifically by researcher Douglas Shaw and his team, who had spent decades trying to solve a problem the industry had created for itself. Modern commercial strawberries had been bred almost entirely for one trait: shelf life, the ability to survive picking, packing, cooling, shipping, and sitting beneath fluorescent lights without visibly deteriorating. What was sacrificed in that process was flavor, sweetness, the volatile aromatic compounds that make a strawberry smell before you have even tasted it, like something worth reaching for. Albion was bred differently. It carried a remontant trait, the biological capacity to produce fruit not once per season, but continuously, across multiple flushes, from spring well into autumn. This was not a new invention. It was a rediscovery. The old European musk strawberries, the Fragaria moschata varieties prized by French and English gardeners in the 17th century, had possessed similar qualities. Albion reconnected, whether intentionally or not, to a much older understanding of what this plant was capable of. Its fruit was large, conical, firm enough to ship, but also sweet, genuinely sweet, in the way that commercial varieties had forgotten how to be. The sugar-to-acid balance was considered exceptional by researchers. The flavor compounds were measurably more complex. It did not merely look like a strawberry, it tasted like one. In its early years, Albion spread. Growers in California adopted it. Small farms in Europe, in South America, in parts of East Asia, began cultivating it. For a brief window, it seemed possible that the commercial strawberry industry might correct itself. That flavor might return to the equation. It did not. The problems with Albion were, from a systems perspective, significant. It required precise irrigation. It was more susceptible to certain fungal conditions than hardier commercial varieties. Its continuous production cycle demanded more consistent labor and attention. And crucially, its licensing, controlled initially by UC Davis through a network of agreements, made it inaccessible to small growers who could not afford the royalty structures. A fruit that tasted better, grew longer, and fed more people across a longer season was, nonetheless, economically unmanageable for large-scale industrial production. It was not eliminated. Elimination would have required acknowledgement. Instead, it was simply not chosen. Season after season, farm after farm, the varieties that moved through the supply chain were the ones that traveled well, stored long, and required no special knowledge to grow at industrial scale. Albion became, in most of the world, a specialty item, a farmer's market fruit, a thing you could grow in your garden if you knew to look for it. What science has since confirmed is that what was abandoned had value that the market never measured. Research published through the University of California system and later through European agricultural institutes documented albion's superior anthocyanin content, the compounds responsible not only for color but for significant antioxidant activity. Studies examining its Brix levels, the measure of dissolved sugars, consistently placed Albion above standard commercial varieties. Soil researchers noted something else. Albion's extended growing season, its multiple fruiting cycles, allowed for a different relationship with soil biology. Monoculture. Single flush production strips the land quickly. A plant that fruits across 6 months interacts with soil microbiota differently. It gives, it takes, it participates in a slower rhythm. This was not a discovery. It was a confirmation of what smaller, older growing traditions had already known. There is a particular silence that follows when a food becomes associated with poverty or struggle. The strawberry, in its wild and semi-wild forms, was sustenance for people who had no other options during hard seasons, for indigenous communities displaced from their land, for migrant workers who picked the commercial crop but could rarely afford to purchase it. When a food carries that memory, generations learn to distance themselves from it, not because it is inferior, because the association with scarcity is painful. This is not weakness. It is the natural response of communities that survive by moving forward, by refusing to look back at what survival once required. But the forgetting is not neutral. It is loss carrying the shape of progress. The world the Albion strawberry was bred into no longer exists in the same form, and the world it is being rediscovered in is considerably more fragile. Climate patterns across California's central coast have shifted measurably since 2006. Water availability, always a constraint in strawberry production, has become a defining crisis. The single flush, high-volume varieties that displaced Albion are extraordinarily water-intensive. Their narrow genetic base makes them vulnerable to disease pressures that are accelerating as temperatures rise. Albion's remontant nature, its ability to produce across an extended season with relatively consistent yields, is exactly the kind of biological resilience that industrial agriculture bred out of its crops and is now urgently searching for a way to breed back in. The soil science is telling the same story. Continuous cropping of high-yield monocultures has degraded productive topsoil across the world's most critical growing regions at rates that are not recoverable within human generational timescales. The slower, more reciprocal relationship between a remontant plant and its soil is not nostalgia. It is engineering. It is how biological systems sustain themselves across time. The knowledge was never lost. It was held by the researchers who documented it, filed it, and watched it be passed over. It was held by the small growers who kept planting Albion not because the market rewarded them for it, but because the fruit was worth growing. It was held in seed banks, in university extension records, in the notebooks of people who understood that flavor is not a luxury. It is a signal. It is the plant's way of telling you it is doing what it was designed to do. Nature does not require permission to persist. The remontant strawberry fruited through spring. It fruited through summer. It fruited into the gray weeks of early autumn, when every other variety had long gone dormant. It did not wait to be chosen. The soil remembers what grew in it. The seed carries what no market ever owned. And patience, the deep, geological patience of a living system that has been fruiting in one form or another for millions of years, is not something that an economic quarter can contain. What was buried is still growing. It is waiting, as it always has, for the right conditions, and it will fruit again. If you believe that what survives deserves to be remembered, subscribe to Ancient Food Files. Every archive we open is one less thing the world forgets.